So if you're like me and you've got a system like this, but you also use computers and also external drum machines and synthesizers, then you're going to need a way to synchronize all of this so that everything stays in time. Now, over the past 20 odd years of me making electronic music, this has been probably the biggest problem in my studio is synchronization. So I've spent a lot of time researching and trying out pretty much everything out there in terms of synchronizing hardware and software. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I came across this, the Missing Link 2 module by Circuit Happy, a module at 2 HP that allows you to synchronize your Eurorack with any software that is running Ableton Link over a Wi-Fi connection without very little fuss at all, as if by magic. And it just so happens that the ML2 by Circuit Happy has Ableton Link inside of it. And I've been using this for years, and it's only 2 HP. It's very, very cheap. It's tight and it just works, and it works brilliantly. So Ableton Link has been around for a number of years. It was, I think, first featured inside of Live 10. At the time of writing this, there was over 150 applications using, particularly on iOS apps and Android apps, and a few in Mac OS and Windows software as well. Yeah, it was quite a big thing when it first came out. And I know a lot of developers have been adding this to their synthesizers, their drum machines. You know, in fact, if we go over to the link here for link enabled products, you can just see how many there are now. In fact, I wasn't even aware that Logic Pro has link enabled within it now. I'm presuming that Ableton perhaps charges a fee to license this out. Oh, Pro Tools has it as well. MPC has it as well. Gosh, there's a lot. That's really cool. So 247 are listed now on the Ableton website here. That's quite something. So here it is, the ML2 Missing Link 2 by Circuit Happy. 2 HP, very few buttons and only 2 outputs on the front. You've got a play, pause button. You've got plus or minus to change the tempo, a tap tempo. If you hold down tap, you can also get to some secondary functions. There is output A and B. These are both configurable. I've got it set up so it's kicking out of clock out of A and a reset out of B, and they feed into PAMs. So PAM is listening to the ML2. PAM then kicks out the clock and resets, and they're distributed around my rack via multiples. There's also a green light at the top of the ML2. Now what this does, it indicates when it is connected to a Wi-Fi network, and that's how this connects to everything over Wi-Fi. It can either generate its own Wi-Fi network, which is cool if you want your own private one. So if you're playing live at a venue and you don't want to join the Wi-Fi network there because there's 100 other people using it, you can just generate one from here and then you connect to that. Anything connected to that network that it's on, it will be able to communicate with via Ableton Link. That's how this works. I've got it set up so it's actually connected to my studio network, just because my Akai Force is also on the studio network. My laptop is already connected to that network. So with this being all connected and ready to go, if I just hit play on here, you'll see it counts down. And what it did there, it counted until the end of the bar basically, because there's always I guess an internal clock going on here. And what it did, it waited till the end of the bar before it started playing, so that was cool. And you get an indication of those lights moving 1, 2, 3, 4 through the 4 beats of a bar, I guess. So yeah, everything is now being driven from that. So, you know, my Metropolis here is receiving the clock and reset from that. Any other sequencer, the Performer is, the Nerd sequencer is, anything else? Yeah, there's probably a few other things here. All of that's done via multiples. So PAM sends basically the clock and a reset into multiples. Those multiples go out to other multiples. Oh yeah, my steppies, I've got 2 steppies here by IntelliGel. So they're clocked off that as well, and you also receive a reset from there. So rightly or wrongly, that's how I do it. I know you can get some issues when you're using multiples to send clock everywhere, but it works for me. So perhaps there's a better way of doing it, and you can let me know about that in the comments. So I can also change the tempo on here, speed things up, slow things down, tap tempo in if I wanted to and stop it. Everything's synced up. Everything's nice and happy. Okay, so let's have a look at the back end of the ML2. This is what it looks like. It allows you to hit play from here, turn on sync for start and stop. You can set the tempo here. You can half the tempo and times it by 2, nudge it up and down. You can change the loop size of the beats as well from 4 to something else. So yeah, you can get some interesting results here. If you want to play around with that, you could change it to like an odd number. There's an offset that you can change as well. This is useful if you're finding that, I don't know, your DAW is slightly ahead or slightly behind. The next thing is your outputs. So output A and output B. Once you've got these set up, I've never found a need to change them. I did find that I had to play around with them a little bit just to make sure that Pamela's workout was happy listening to what it was receiving from the ML2. So let me show you what I mean by that. So output A is kicking out a clock. You can decide for that to kick out a clock that's just always on. You can have a reset trigger or a gate. So you can also have that for output B as well. So I have output A as a clock. I have output B as a reset trigger. The clock is kicking out 24 ppqn. You can change that 1 through to 16. You can change it from a trigger to a square, and you can change the length of that as well. Now Pam seems to like 24 ppqn, trigger 2 milliseconds. So if you're using this with Pams, or you're going to buy this and use it with Pams, I would use these settings. This is what I use. Output B is set to a trigger for a reset. That's really important, obviously, because without that, the sequences that I'm using in my Eurorack, they're not all going to go back to 0, are they, when I hit play? So it's a reset trigger. For Pams, this works well at 2 milliseconds at the clock edge. You can change that to before clock once it's start as well, not every loop. And that's it. Once that's set, I don't need to change that. Once you've got that working, you can close that. And then in your DAW, provided you've got your transport synchronization, you're using Ableton Link, then it gives you the setting to look for anything on your network with Ableton Link. Here, if I click on it, you'll see there it is. It changed from 0 to 1 because it has found the ML2 on my network. When I hit play in Bitwig, it will hit play on the ML2. When I hit stop in Bitwig, it will stop the ML2, and vice versa. I press play on the ML2 and it plays my DAW. I press stop on the ML2 and it stops my DAW. And it is tight. I've not had any issues. That's probably the most important question. How tight is this? I've tried everything in the past. I've tried MIDI to synchronize. I've tried these special clocks that you could buy that comes as a big piece of hardware, and you have these different cables and you do offsets, and it was not fun at all. And with both of those, I could never get the two synchronized. Here, it couldn't be easier. And it just works. So let me show you just how good the timing is as well. So if I just hit play, what we're listening to is the kick drum from Perquons. And then if I bring in a kick drum here inside the computer, you can hear that. Now let's make the kick drum pattern exactly the same. I don't hear any flamming. Just change the tempo. Sounds good to me. Let's bring in another sequence. And another one. I'll take out the kick drum from Perquons. So we're just listening to the computer at the moment, and then bring the Perquons back in. And then I'll bring back in the plasma voice. There you go, everything's synced up. It just works. If I change the tempo here, it changes it on the ML2, you can hear that, but you can also see on the browser, it's 104, it's 104. If I change it on the browser to, I don't know, 89, it changes it to 89 now. Nice and simple. I change the tempo on the front here, it changes the tempo inside of Bitwig. And it does that in divisions of 1 BPM. So there you go. If you want to synchronize your outboard gear, your DAW, your Eurorack system, the ML2 is the way to go. It's certainly been the way to go for me. It solved so many headaches. It's been so easy to configure. Once it's set up, it's just absolutely flawless. It's never let me down. It's one of those, you know, it's one of those things that you buy for your studio that you plug it in, you configure it once and don't need to do anything. Once you've configured it, you leave it alone. It sits at 2 HP. It doesn't take up hardly any room. It fits easily inside of a skiff. When you're playing live, it's there at a touch of a button to start your live set and make sure that everything else is synchronized at a touch of a button. So there it is, the missing link 2 from Circuit Happy. So if you're new to this channel and you found this helpful, then please do hit the like and subscribe and share this. There's loads of videos on my channel, everything from patching techniques, using Eurorack, performing with live, setting up your own live systems, live performances and more. Also, if you'd like to access all of my music, you can do that over at Bandcamp, where you can access hours and hours of all of my music, including B-sides and unreleased music, remixes and more. And I've recently just also launched a Patreon, which allows you to not only access that music, but also things like samples and presets and loads of extra bonus content that you can't get anywhere else. There's also the ability, if you're interested, to do one-to-one tuition on anything related to electronic music or music production that you would find useful, which we can do over Zoom. So do go and check that out. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you found it useful and I'll see you next time. Bye.